Hello, I'm Anne Riddell, and this is Science and You. The statistics are both staggering and heartbreaking. According to the World Health Organization, more than 47 million people worldwide have dementia. We start today with a closer look at what dementia is and the distinction between it and Alzheimer's disease.
Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. There's a variety of different types of dementias, and Alzheimer's is by far 60 to 70% of all cases. However, there's a variety of different types of conditions. Some medical conditions, other neurologic diseases or brain diseases that cause dementia. Even depression can cause a pseudo-dementia. So there's a variety of things, and dementia is the umbrella term.
Dr. Richard Isaacson is the director of the Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic at York-Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medicine. His experience with the disease is also personal.
Alzheimer's is a tough disease. I have 4 family members with Alzheimer's. My Uncle Bob was diagnosed when I was in high school. A cousin of mine was diagnosed just after I finished medical training. It's a tough condition.
Just how prevalent is Alzheimer's disease? Consider this from the Alzheimer's Association. More than 5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. It is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. And every 66 seconds, someone in the U.S. develops the disease.
The number 1 risk factor for Alzheimer's is advancing age. As we age, the risk of Alzheimer's disease goes up. At the age of 65, almost 1 in 10 people have Alzheimer's disease. At the age of 71, 1 in 7 have dementia. And the most shocking statistic is at the age of 85 and over, 45 to 50% of the population has Alzheimer's disease.
Dr. Isaacson says though there is no known cure for Alzheimer's disease, there are things all of us can do to try to reduce our risk.
The most convincing and compelling evidence would be in the area of lifestyle. So exercise on a regular basis, getting the heart rate up, getting to know your own body, getting to know your body fat, getting to know your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your blood sugar, learning this and taking a proactive approach. If you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or diabetes, seeing your primary care doctor, getting control of this, and slowing these risk factors down may absolutely delay the onset of Alzheimer's disease. And then finally, nutrition. Anyone at any moment can change what they eat. You can't eat a magic blueberry and think you're going to prevent Alzheimer's disease, but everyone out there can do absolutely something, whether it's eating half a cup of blueberries or strawberries 2 to 3 times a week. In one study that was showed to actually slow the onset of cognitive decline by over 2 years. Reducing carbohydrates, reducing the insulin spikes, carbohydrate reduction is absolutely important. Good carbs versus bad carbs, learn the difference. There's good fats versus bad fats, learn the difference. I think there are definitely a host of things that anyone today can start doing.
So how do we know what's part of the typical aging process and what's not?
As we age, the brain changes, and there are certain things that are normal to change as we age, but when that something starts to become progressive. If you forget your keys, but you remember them later, and you can find them, well, that's normal as we age. But if you forget your keys and you are not able to find them, that may be something that's more concerning.
But there is help, progress, and hope.
I'm fairly confident in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, there's going to be something else on the market that will modify disease progression or slow disease progression. And I think in the next 5, 10, 15 years, this is going to be a totally different disease.
Here's the thing that I would say about Alzheimer's. It affects more people than those who are diagnosed with the disease. Alzheimer's, because it takes away a person's ability to judge and function for themselves, it is a disease which children get because they are the caregivers of a parent with Alzheimer's. It's a disease that a spouse gets because their life has been captured by 24 hours of dealing with a person with Alzheimer's. So I've been sort of working in the Alzheimer's world for many years, and I see more and more that there's almost no separation between the person with the disease and the person caring for them. And that even extends to home care workers, not just family members, but even people coming into the house to take care of people. That it's an astoundingly complicated, difficult disease to live with and to care for.
Clearly, the impact of dementia is widespread and devastating for patients and their families. But there is cutting-edge research underway to fight this deadly disease. Gilliam has more on that.
Dementia is a disease where people who are usually elderly are incapable of handling their affairs, incapable of paying their bills or making their medical appointments. Dr. Martin Sadowski is an associate professor of neurology, psychology, and pharmacology at NYU School of Medicine.
The most common cause of dementia in in elderly people in the United States, as well as among elderlies in the Western Europe, is Alzheimer's disease, which is a specific disease that causes accumulation of certain proteins in the brain of those patients. Other forms of dementia are caused by vascular disease, which would be a damage to the brain by a number of strokes or recurrent bleeding into the brains.
It has to do with a protein called beta amyloids.
Beta amyloid is a small peptide that is being released from nerve endings when a nerve cell functions.
Normally, there are multiple ways the brain gets rid of the protein, but in people prone to Alzheimer's, that doesn't happen, and the protein builds up exponentially over the years.
Imagine that our sanitation department went on a strike or went away for a month or two. How much trash would be accumulating on the streets of New York City, and how this trash would cause a number of other problems, making our beautiful city unlivable.
Sadowski says while trash would pile up in the city in a number of weeks, it takes years to trash the brain. Currently, there is no cure for Alzheimer's, but there are some treatments.
We do have a couple of treatments that we offer patients. A couple of medications are approved by Food and Drug Administration that allow us to slow down the course of cognitive decline, the course of dementia progression in patients who have Alzheimer's disease. But there is no specific treatment that would target underlying biology of Alzheimer's disease.
But NYU is involved in research that is attempting to come up with treatments. Right now, there are a number of clinical trials going on aimed at developing medications that would be infused into the bloodstream and give patients antibodies that would go after beta amyloids.
One type of the antibody is designed to penetrate to the brain and bind to deposits of beta amyloid in the brain.
And studies by the Massachusetts-based company Biogen on the antibody aducanumab are showing promise. The treatment is being tested in 2 major clinical trials to see if it can be reproduced on a large scale and how effective it will be. Sadowski says patients are tolerating the treatments very well, but the results are not yet known. Sadowski says there are 2 other approaches that also show promise. One is being tested by Eli Lilly Pharmaceuticals.
In contrast to aducanumab, solanezumab, the Eli Lilly antibody, does not penetrate to the brain. It's an antibody that circulates in the bloodstream. And in the bloodstream, it captures small amounts of beta amyloid, literally sucking out the beta amyloid from the brain.
There's a 3rd study that involves giving patients oral medication called BACE inhibitors.
This oral form medication given to patient is to stop production of beta amyloid.
So there are 3 areas being studied: the oral medication, another that works in the bloodstream, and a 3rd that works in the brain to remove plaque. Another area that researchers are studying has to do with biomarkers, things that determine if a person is likely to develop Alzheimer's. The discovery of biomarkers could lead to treating patients before they develop the symptoms and trying to prevent the disease, much the same way as we've done with treating high cholesterol to prevent heart disease. And Dr. Sadowski says he believes we'll soon see treatments for Alzheimer's, much like those developed for HIV, that now allow infected patients to live productive lives for 20 or 30 years. While there is no cure for dementia or Alzheimer's today, there is hope on the horizon. But we'll have to wait another 2 to 3 years to find out how effective the new therapies and early detection will be. I'm Mike Gilliam for Science and You.
Turning now to our environment here on Science and You, so much of what we do affects the world we live in, even though we may not realize that all of the time. The New York Hall of Science is taking visitors inside our planet's natural balance with a dazzling interactive digital exhibit that shows how changes in one habitat can affect another. Here's Andrew Falzon.
One really cool way to teach kids about ecology is to use technology, and that's exactly what they're doing here at the New York Hall of Science. We're here today checking out the Connected Worlds exhibit.
It's really nice and interactive, especially with the families that come in, so it's really awesome.
Awesome might be a bit of an understatement for Connected Worlds, a permanent exhibit at the New York Hall of Science. A 3,000-foot interactive space transforms the museum's stark, cavernous Great Hall into a lush landscape complete with water, animals, and greenery, all of it digital.
If you look over at the top, you'll see, I don't know if you guys have played Xbox One with the Kinect. So it basically has a similar sensor at the top. So you'll notice that from a distance, it'll pick up your sense, and it's able to kind of, detect that you're there and work similar to that.
Giant projectors overhead work in tandem with the Xbox Kinect sensors to bring the animations to life. I got to explore the ins and outs with my cousins Francesco and Jojo, and it quickly became apparent that in this exhibit, technology is just an educational tool.
We have our waterfall over in the center. It's kind of how everything flows. And we want kids to really have the idea of, how our environment works, what we need, water, seeds.
In order to help each of the separate environments thrive, kids have to plant seeds. In order to get the plants to grow, water has to be diverted to the planted areas. That requires teamwork to move heavy plush logs to direct water flow across the interactive floor.
Even though it is tech-based, like you said, it still works like it's a real environment.
They will grow, and if you don't put any water in their habitat, they will die.
And in Connected Worlds, cleaning up has never been so much fun.
You have to stay 2 feet away from the screen, and then you have to just do a karate chop.
The exhibit is included with regular admission, and each session begins with a detailed explanation. Even though it's clearly geared toward younger kids, even older kids will find it somewhat awe-inspiring, and for visitors under the age of 13, it's an amazing experience.
I was like, whoa, how did they make this? Wow, and all that stuff. It's kind of a cool experience for the kids to see and learn.
I'm Andrew Falzon for Science and You.
Do you ever look at your dog and wonder what she's thinking? I know I do. Do you sometimes worry about your cat's feelings? As emotionally connected as we are to our pets, most of us would still love to know more. Carl Safina, an expert on animal behavior, has some answers in his new book, Beyond Words: How Animals Think and Feel. Ernabel Demillo recently met up with him.
For me, it all began with a boy. His name was Ethan.
Bailey, 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 Bailey.
My name was Bailey, 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 Bailey.
In the new movie, A Dog's Purpose, we see life through a dog's point of view. He teaches his owners about life and love. While some may say, only in the movies, most pet owners would say otherwise. How many dog and cat owners do you know say their pets are just like humans? That's the question I had for Carl Safina, author of Beyond Words: How Animals Think and Feel.
I feel like my dog loves me, but does my dog really love me in the way that I think it loves me?
Yes, I certainly think so. I mean, why do we doubt that? In every way, it shows love and affection, and it shows loyalty, and all we return is doubt. And that's very strange, because if a person acted exactly that way, you would say, he or she, they really love me. I really love them. We love each other. We're really devoted to each other.
Safina is a noted conservationist, professor, and founder of the Safina Center in Long Island. He has written several bestsellers on conservation and animal behavior and is a noted speaker on the subject. His most recent TED Talk has more than 1.7 million views.
They have been watching us for much longer than we have been watching them. They know us better than we know them. We have the same imperatives: take care of our babies, find food, try to stay alive. Whether we're outfitted for hiking in the hills of Africa or outfitted for diving under the sea, we are basically the same. We are kin under the skin.
For his latest book, Safina trekked around the globe watching animals in their natural habitat. He studied wolf packs in Yellowstone National Park. He also went to Kenya, where he saw elephants surviving against poachers. He found stories of animal joy, grief, jealousy, anger and love. In the end, he argues that humans need to stop judging animals from a human perspective.
Yeah, well, it's part of our narcissism that we will judge them by how much like us they are, because we are perfect, of course, right? And the reality is we are far from perfect, and that the question really isn't how are they like us, and the more they're like us, the better they are. The question is, who are they, like us or not? Who are we here on this planet with? Who is experiencing life? Who is trying very hard to stay alive, to keep their babies alive? Who does belong to the world every bit as much as humans belong to the world? And what are all the implications of what we do and how we treat the rest of the living world, how we treat them? To me, that's really those are the interesting questions, I think. It's not, do you measure up to me?
The wolves, he noted, were just like us in many ways, including their family structure.
Wolves live in nuclear families, a lot like people do.
And just like human families, chaos ensued when the head of the family passes away.
Often what happens is the siblings start fighting. There's rivalries that break out. You know, the adults keep the order, and it's actually often the same with wolves. So in that instance, when that mother was shot, the siblings broke out into all this rivalry that they were never able to express before because it was an orderly family and everybody knew their place. Now nobody knew their place, and now there was all this jockeying and confusion.
He also noted that elephants have learned to distinguish languages.
They know the difference between human languages. They recognize the different languages, and they can recognize it from a recording of the languages. That's the thing. You know, it's not just that they know that the tourists are over there, we see them, and we know that they're okay. That would be enough. I mean, it's really kind of the same thing, but it's even more surprising to us that they actually know the difference in the languages through a recording. So they know tourists don't bother them. When they hear tourists' language, even though they don't see them, they're okay because they're not afraid of tourists. When they hear the herders who carry spears and throw spears at them and have conflict over water holes and things like that, they're afraid of the sound of their language because they know the difference. They're extremely perceptive.
His book is filled with anecdotes just like this one, stories that point to animals living in the sea, sky, and land who think, feel, and express emotions just as we do. His end goal is to make readers feel connected with the animals he writes about, animals whose lives and habitats are endangered.
We're not here alone, that all of these other lives matter, and they are all lives that are trying to live and raise their babies just like us. They belong to the world at least as much as we do. They do far less damage to the world and to other things than we do, and therefore they deserve our consideration and our respect, and we need to leave room for them. And I really am hoping to warm people up to the idea that we live in an incredibly beautiful world filled with wondrous, miraculous living things. And it would be good to keep it that way.
What a fascinating story, and how lucky are we, because Ernabel is here to talk a little more about it. Hey there.
Hey, Carol Ann, good to see you.
Good to see you too. First of all, I gotta say, Stella, your dog is adorable.
Yeah, she makes for good TV, yes. Right?
But seriously, I mean, what an amazing group of stories you had to tell in there. Were there some other anecdotes that you heard that you want to share with us?
Well, you know, there's a great chapter on animal precognition. Safina believes that animals are psychic. You know, They have like a sixth sense. And he tells this story about wild elephants who arrive at a watering hole just moments before scheduled orphans arrive, almost as if they sense that there were going to be young ones there that needed tending to.
Oh my gosh.
So he has a ton of stories like that, and I think, you know, all of us have sometimes said to ourselves, like, how did you know, that person was coming over? Or how did you know we were going to the vet?
Right, exactly. The
right,
vet, for
yeah.
sure. Or that you're not feeling well, or that you're a little blue about something, and you feel like your pet completely responds to you. I always feel that way. The elephants that you brought up, the other thing that was amazing to me, because that was also, the elephants were the ones who distinguished between language. Is that right?
Yes, yes. They knew the difference between like the villagers, the people who were good to them, kind to them, and the poachers. And that's when they started to get nervous. And that's so fascinating, because I think also as pet owners, we believe that our animals are talking to us in some way, communicating with us in some way.
I completely believe that. I feel like our dog, Hudson, has a different bark for everything. So she will make it very clear when she wants her ball, which is all the time, and she'll make it very clear when she wants to go out or she's hungry. They're so distinguishable, and I feel like she has tailored them to communicate with me. Do you feel like that?
Oh yeah, no, definitely with my dog, with Stella. And I know too, she knows exactly too when we are going to see her best friend. Because as soon as I take out her bag, yes, she this black, she has a special black bag.
Her travel bag.
Her travel bag. It is her travel bag. She gets so excited that she will run right outside to the car, into the back seat.
I mean, they are just so much smarter, I think, than we often give them credit for, which is one of the things that he talks about, right? With this notion that we too often judge animals from our perspective.
Exactly,
is that right?
Exactly, yeah. Instead of asking, he says that we need to ask, like, who are you? You know, and start thinking, not in terms of, you know, what makes a human love, what makes a human think, but how the animals, whether they're fish, whether they're birds or mammals, how they think. And I think he also believes that that will also make us more empathetic toward animals.
I was really struck by the anecdote about the wolves. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
You know what's really interesting too is when the mom dies, it's even worse. He tells a story of a pack. The mom was killed, and the sisters descended into the sibling rivalry. It was really bad that they actually ejected one of their sisters out of the pack. Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Can you see that? Can't you see that happening?
Sibling rivalry.
Right.
It's a thing.
Without the mom
yes.
sort of like taking
well, it's that
care of
adult
things.
It's essentially like having the adult in the household who says, this is your place and this is yours, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
But it really functions kind of like we do.
Exactly. And he also tells a story of the alpha male, the wolves. You know, they're taught to be aggressive. They're also taught, you know, they're the hunters. But what the alpha wolf would do with the younger wolves, and they would play around and fight, but he would let the younger wolf win. Almost like a dad.
That is so interesting. Was there anything that you took away that you felt was really sort of his most important message to us?
I think his message really is that we need to be kinder to animals. Especially wolves and animals that are really endangered. And the elephants, for instance, he really believes that we have to do something to stop the poaching. You know, and by writing this book and really making us believe and feel that animals can think and feel just like us, right? He truly believes that that will all make all of us feel that we need to all do something.
Well, I believe it too.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you, Ernabel.
Oh,
That's
thank
terrific.
you, Carol Ann.
Are you looking to ace that science class or crush an upcoming math exam? Here's an idea. Borrow notes from the smartest person in the class. Donna Hanover tells us how.
What if a big fat notebook from the smartest kid in class could make science and math a breeze? Check out Everything You Need to Ace Science and Everything You Need to Ace Math. Natalie Ledoux is a senior editor in the children's group at Workman Publishing.
One of our senior editors here was going to a parent-teacher conference for her son, who's in the 6th grade, and the teacher said to her, your son would do a lot better if he took better notes. And the parent said, actually, she told everyone in the class the same thing, and at this point, I should just be charging $1 and Xeroxing my daughter's notes and giving it out to the class. And that's actually how the idea was born.
The science Big Fat Notebook covers everything from the laws of motion to chemistry to outer space to evolution. And the math one covers everything from fractions to equations to graphs to geometry.
It says here, notes borrowed from the smartest kid in class.
Yeah.
The books really were written by students not so far out of middle school.
We chose students who had aced these subjects in middle school and were now graduating from high school and going into Ivy League schools for that particular major.
And how were they checked for accuracy?
We got some of the greatest teachers in the country to make sure that all the information was there. All of the diagrams were correct. For example, in science, we partnered with Mike Geeson, who's a National Teacher of the Year award winner, and he's a fantastic teacher in Oregon. On math, we had Wida Newton, who's also a Teacher of the Year award winner for Arkansas.
The Big Fat Notebooks use lots of doodles and mnemonic devices.
Here's a great page to turn to, which is about the nomenclature of animals. The mnemonic is, Dear King Philip came over for great spaghetti. And the first letter of each of those words,
DKPCOFGS.
That's correct, stand for domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Here we have the geological time scale. We have another great mnemonic to remember the order of the eras. Purple pandas make crepes. And that stands for Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. And again, we have these really funny little pandas, purple pandas making crepes, which is so cute and so funny and weird. That is the point of a mnemonic. Make them weird and funny and quirky and, you know, go wild, be creative, because that's actually how the information is going to stick in your head.
In the math Big Fat Notebook, one subject is multiplying with the dreaded negative numbers.
We have this great doodle which shows a positive number saying, you'll never change me, multiplied by a negative number equaling a negative number saying, blast, oh no, you know, you changed me. And that's to show that anytime you multiply a negative number by a positive number, it turns negative. So again, it's including the humor, it's including the personality to make these subjects come alive.
And the books suggest experiments you can do at home.
So what you have here is just a pencil and a glass of water, and when you dip the pencil into the water, you see the pencil looks distorted. It looks bent because the light waves reflecting off the pencil are traveling faster in the air than they are in the water.
In the book, I love this, where it said, this is the same thing that is happening when you're standing in a pool and your legs look short and thick.
That's right.
The Math Big Fat Notebook says that surface area may be easier to understand if you take a cardboard cube and slice it open. In science, kids can come up with their own experiments, like seeing potential energy by building a tower of blocks and kinetic energy by knocking it down.
My tower actually had more kinetic energy than your tower, but only because it was higher.
And renewable energy, like wind, can power a very small car. It turns out adults like the Big Fat Notebooks, too.
We actually are getting tons of feedback from parents who are, concerned about, can I help my kid with their homework? I'm not even sure I remember these subjects myself. When you open these up, they're just so friendly, they're so inviting, they're vigorous with the information, and I think people are really inspired to learn.
What happened to the girl who took the notes originally?
So she did go on to excel academically, and now she's at Yale University.
In addition to science and math, there are Big Fat Notebooks for world history, American history, and English language arts.
We want kids to really have a love of learning, and that's across every subject, not just the subjects that they feel the strongest in, but the subjects where they're like a little bit unsure. We want them to experiment and really enjoy the experience of, not knowing and learning.
So if making science and math add up to fun is an experiment you can get behind, the Big Fat Notebooks are likely to be a breakthrough. I'm Donna Hanover for Science and You.
That's our show for today. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Anne Riddell. We'll see you next month on Science and You.